Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Welcome to Theorem's Marketplace Live. We are excited to have um, our first vendor doing their demo today, Cobblestone Software. Today, we're going to have Mike Donnelly, Senior Account Executive at Cobblestone, who'll be presenting the demo today. Um, Please save any questions that you have towards the end of the demo. We'll be looking through the chat. Any questions that you have, you'll be welcome to come off of mute and ask any questions at the end. Um, and the Cobblestone team will be happy to answer those. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mike Donnelly and his team to start with the demo. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Thanks so much. And thank everyone for joining today. As it was just mentioned, my name is Mike Donnelly. I'm a senior account executive here at Cobblestone Software. And what we're going to be going through today is some of our main AI tools that are going to help out with both ingestion of an agreement as well as reviewing and redlining. We will be doing a giveaway during this webinar. And if you scan the QR code towards the end of today's presentation and register for a future webinar, you'll win your choice of either a $50 Amazon gift card or a donation to one of the three charities that we see on the screen here after attending the demo. And then towards the end of my session today, we'll be bringing up that QR code as well as opening the floor for questions to be sent through the chat. And based on the question, if I can show it, I will be more than happy to show you the solution to the challenge you're running into, or I can just describe it. But let's go ahead and dive in. So real quick, before we actually start going into any detail about the AI tools, it is worth mentioning that the system is going to be offering really every corner of lifecycle management as you can think of, not just the ingestion of red lines. So for example, the screen that we're seeing in front of us is a dashboard. You can build a dashboard for yourself. You can build a dashboard for other people, kind of choose from widgets, if you will. And the intent here is just to make your experience a lot faster, the navigation a lot easier and more approachable. So for example, this dashboard in front of us gives me my main functionality directly in front of me, just through these big buttons up at the top. Things like creating request records, creating contract records, going through our existing reports, accessing our standardized clause library. Your main functions can be very easily navigated to just directly through your dashboard using a style of dashboard like this. But another thing that the dashboard really does for you is provide that high level understanding of many different agreements at the same time. So for example, in the center of my dashboard here, we have a nice little workflow visual, contracts to review, pending response, and active agreements within the system. And as you are continuing to approve contracts, get them through their life cycle, we can achieve this kind of bouncing from left to right throughout the workflow of a contract so we can see that macro view. And if we need to dive into a little bit more detail about a particular agreement that we're interested in, a dashboard like this provides us with direct links to those records to provide us with that detail. So this way, once again, very easily navigated and easy to stay on top of things. The bottom of my dashboard here is more of your report style information. So what we can see on the left is we have 8 contracts expiring in the next month. We have 4 open tasks that require our attention. If we need to, once again, get an idea of what contracts are expiring in the next month, we can go ahead and follow this link, and that will bring us to a full report giving us that detail, which I can then jump into a contract record directly under these view links. We have contracts broken down by type in the center. This is just a nice bar chart giving us the volume of contracts in every single category that they might be in, NDAs, MSAs, etc. The types of agreements that the system can track in your system is a configurable set of different types. And then we have contracts by status on the right here. And this is just a nice visual of the pipeline across the board. Where exactly are our contracts in their life cycle? Now, in terms of ingestion, of getting a contract within the system and seeing what we can do with it, there's actually a few different methods on how we can get that contract up and running. I'm going to be showing you all a few different methods, and the style of which I'm going to approach this is based on the type of user that I might be. So first and foremost, let's talk about a more legal or contract manager focused role. Someone who's actually going to be working on the agreement directly and potentially redlining the file in general. So directly from my dashboard, what I'll be able to do when it comes to a third-party agreement that I need to review is I can just simply drag and drop that from my email, from my desktop, wherever, into the top rightish area of the system. And then the system is going to be asking me what type of record I'm looking to create with this file. Now, of course, I will be choosing contract, but this same method applies to a number of things. Request forms, employee contracts for new hires, vendor onboarding forms. But for today, we'll choose contract, and that's when we'll define exactly what type of agreement we're uploading, which is a software agreement. So this is what I was mentioning earlier, which is a configurable list. And when we continue to add an agreement, what's going to happen is the system is actually going to be scouting through that file, extracting key data into fields for us, which is really going to streamline the process of getting this record created. But it's also going to provide us with some insights on how we can potentially approach this contract down the line. So we'll give this a second to go through that file, and after it's finished, I'll show you what it really did for us. Now, while this is loading as well, it is worth noting that today I'll be walking you through the features and functionality of our premium AI model called Wisdom Plus, which is backed by OpenAI. And that is a premium option, but we also offer a different, more complementary or out-of-the-box option called Wisdom Basic, and that is using the LLM Mistral. But here we are at the ad screen, and we can see in the center of the screen the fields here. Some of them have been automatically filled out for us. We see contract title and counterparty name has been identified. Term, warranty, and identification have been extracted into fields for us for ease of viewing. And then we have key dates like the expiration and effective date has been brought in as well. We can build upon what exactly the system is looking for and which fields information should be fed into. But let's take a look at some other options that this method gives us in terms of future reviews, such as high-risk findings. So high-risk findings, what this does is, even if it wasn't extracted into a field per se, the system is still going to break out every clause it could identify into its own little box. Beyond that, it gives us a reason as to why it might be considered high risk. So for example, effects of termination discusses travel-related expenses and reimbursement, which does not align with typical standard language found in this. So this just gives me a red flag. I might want to take a closer look at this language when it comes to negotiation or redlining. Now, once I save and continue, this is going to be bringing us into the contract record, which I'll show you in a moment. But that's just the method that I'd like to show for someone who's a little bit more in tune with the negotiation side of things. Now, for those of you on the call who might be expecting some not contract managers to use the system, maybe just data entry individuals, sales individuals, whoever, someone who's not really going to be working on a contract directly, still you would like to leverage the system to help out with them. So I'll show you a different method that we can take to get a record up and running in the system, and that's actually going to be done through our complementary Outlook plugin. So for those of you who use Outlook, this is an option for you. It's a complementary tool you can put onto any single one of your employees or users' Outlook programs, so that way they can very easily get contracts into the system, which you can then leverage by reporting and searching. But for the people who are doing the data entry, it's a very low barrier of entry. Accessing the system and getting a contract in there through Outlook is just a much easier way of adopting a new tool. So here we have an email from a third party that says that they're interested in working with us, and we have an agreement at hand. That typically what I would do is I would either forward it to a legal team member, I would Teams message a legal team member, hey, I got this contract, what do you want me to do with it? Instead of doing any of that and it getting lost within an email inbox directly in Outlook, I can get this in the system. So in the top right corner, we can choose this Contract Insight plugin. That's going to open a sidebar on the right. Now I will need to log in. So I do need to be a user of the system in order to leverage this tool. But directly from Outlook here, I can actually go ahead and create a contract record. Same kind of idea that we saw before, the contract type. It's going to be software agreement, and that will bring me to a list of fields for me. So for example, if we do some detail entering into here, and then save this record, I can upload the files as well. Oh, let's click there, submit. As soon as the record's been created within Outlook, if we return back to the system, and let's just say we've logged in for the first time in the day, we're just on our dashboard, we'll see that TW software agreement waiting for us once the record's been created in this list, for example. We can also get some notifications to ultimately review the agreement, etc. Now, in terms of reviewing the agreement, let's now get into something else that we're familiar with, Word. Now, beyond the Outlook complementary plugin, we also offer a complementary Word plugin. And I'll show you some similarities between the two plugins right now. But first, I'll open up the plugin by using the top right corner once again. That'll open a sidebar. And I'm able to create records using a very similar approach within Word as well. So it's not just Outlook that this offers the same functionality, but Word as well. So if we already done some initial review, we have a very easy way to get that into the system. But beyond just record creation, what else this tool allows you to do now that we're in the document is perform a quick summary of the file. What this will do is it's going to scan through the file and basically consult with OpenAI on what exactly this contract is outlining, what some major points that we might want to focus on when it comes to reviewing, but it's also going to be providing us with suggested red lines, which we can consider including in the agreement. So what we'll see is that quick summary up at the top. We see some findings. So for example, the scope of services is clear, but there are areas where deliverables could be more explicitly defined. And then towards the bottom, we have those suggested red lines. We can read through these red lines as necessary, and if we feel like they're appropriate, we can always just go ahead and click replace, and that'll make the changes for us immediately. Once we're happy with that, we can then move on to the next suggestion and continue accordingly. Now, if you're looking to compare the language found in this agreement versus your standard language, you can always go ahead and access the main menu and choose swap clauses. We offer a clause library, what I mentioned earlier on my dashboard, which is intended to be holding your standard language. And in the Word plugin, we can leverage them kind of side by side with the file itself, because what we'll be able to see is we can see that there's a 23% match on the term clause, 16% match on the payment terms clause, and we can expand these results, see their language, see ours compared with each other, or I can just flat out replace their payment terms with mine by clicking replace in document. Now, once I'm happy with any of my changes made, if I don't already have a contract created, I can just create one using this record creator option that we looked at earlier. Or I can access the repository in general by clicking contracts. And that's just going to pull me a list of every single contract record I have in the system. So why don't we just go for that TW software agreement that we made earlier. And I can upload this contract document right to that record and then notify somebody else that they need to send this out to the third party if they need to review anything further, etc. So those I would say are the main functionalities of our AI tool, which is the ingestion as well as the redlining. And then on top of that, the complementary plugins that just allow your users to have a little bit more of an easier experience getting things in your contract repository. One last thing I can mention before we move on to just company background and open up for questions is this chat bot in the bottom right corner. Now, this chatbot is, I'm going to be using the Wisdom Plus version of this chatbot, which allows you to query for things in the system like, I wonder how many agreements are expiring this month. How many agreements are expiring in the next 30 days? You can ask it questions. How many contracts are under legal review? How many contracts do we have with ABC Company? How many contracts are expiring in the next 30 days? This is a very easy way to essentially pull your more, I don't want to say random, but prompted reports that just might pop in your head that you're just curious about. This is a very easy way to find that. We looked through the records and found that there are 9 agreements expiring days. And even in my report on the dashboard, it's reflecting that same number. So I could ask him much more specific questions if necessary. But who exactly is Cobblestone? In case you're not aware, Cobblestone was founded in 1995, and we're actually one of the very first companies to release an off-the-shelf contract management software. So what this means is we're leaders in the industry, and that's really due to feedback from our user-defined fields, contract types, departments, workflows, alerts, and much more. The configuration I mentioned on today's call is very, very plug and play. There's no IT background, no programming knowledge necessary in order to configure the system. It's all done through the user interface. And at this point, Cobblestone is proud to say that we're selected by over 1,000 clients with thousands of users spanning both the private and public sector. We offer the system as a SaaS solution, as well as a local deployed option for those of you who just want a little bit more control over your own systems. But just last year alone on our SaaS platform, our clients managed well over 4 million records across the board using our system. When it comes to the feedback we hear from our clients, general feedback is mostly related to our user friendliness and the flexibility behind that configuration I mentioned. We offer a 99.9% uptime guarantee on our SaaS platform. And then, of course, as I mentioned a moment ago, we enhance the system with some Wisdom AI intelligence. But Wisdom itself is machine learning, NLP. This is going to allow you to further configure exactly what the system is reading through. The system has come out of the box with over 1 million different variants of training of common clauses, but you can go ahead and add upon that taxonomy of uncommon clauses. The system offers that data identification and capture, as we saw today in field extraction, auto redlining and clause comparison that can be leveraged with the Outlook plugin. Risk mitigation can absolutely be helped when it comes to prompting the AI for different approaches on certain things. And of course, proactive recommendations would be very similar to what we saw earlier as well. But that is what I planned to cover on today's call. So before we dive into any questions, there are some frequently asked questions that I'd like to cover. before opening the chat. Questions that we have gotten on other ones of these calls. So, first typical question that we get is how long does a typical implementation of this software last? How long does it take usually for a client to get fully implemented? So the system is very, very flexible. So the reason why I'm mentioning that is because due to the flexibility, I can't say, oh, all clients get up and running by day 30. It really just ranges based around the scope of the actual project and how complex your processing is for your contracts in general. But typically, implementation lands from anywhere from 60 to 120 days. Another common question we get is regarding storage limits in our system. And that's an easy one. We offer unlimited storage for every single contract record, all fields, all data, all file uploads. You never have to worry about storage when it comes to Cobblestone. We offer unlimited. Another common question we get is how does the system handle amendments or parent child contracts? There are several ways that we can handle that in our system. We offer contract record linking as well as a hierarchy feature, which allows you to make this visual representation of the relationship among different contracts. And in terms of legacy contracts, how we get contracts up and running in the system that we've already been working with, we do offer a data import tool, which allows you to leverage a quick spreadsheet to just do a mass upload of hundreds, if not thousands, of agreements at the same time. Now, alternatively, we also offer professional services to migrate that data for you in the event that you'd like us to take the lead. But let's move on to the chat. Looks like looks like only one message. It was not a question. So if anyone has any questions on anything that we saw today, I'd be more than happy to answer them if you'd like to just place them into the chat of this meeting.
Mike, a quick question for you. So for legal teams that are just kind of starting out and trying to modernize their contract management, what's usually kind of the first place that you would recommend that they start with a platform like Cobblestones?
So the first area that we typically work on is our area is what we consider master reference data. But in layman's terms, really what we mean by that is we like to consult what types of contracts do you plan to work on and what data do you want to report off of these different types. The reason that that's usually the first step is because that's kind of the foundation of the system as a whole. If you don't work on NDAs for whatever reason, you probably don't want to see NDAs in your list of drop down options for contracts. So we want to make sure that those two areas are handled first. So that way we can start getting those contracts that actually exist in the system immediately afterwards. So configuring the types of agreements that the system is accommodating for and the fields associated with each of those types is usually step one. But again, please feel free to drop any questions in the chat. Looks like we have a question here. What's one misconception people still have about CLM and AI implementation that you wish more legal teams understood? So I don't know if this is a controversial one, but I unfortunately have gotten on many different demonstrations where, let's say, the users are expecting the AI to do a little too much. So what we treat our AI as in terms of user experience is more of an assistant rather than a legal team member. I've had many people ask questions where, truth be told, I would like to ask them what they expect themselves to be doing if the AI could do everything they asked for. But at the end of the day, when it comes to our system, we still require user intervention to finalize an approval, to redline an agreement, and ultimately get a contract throughout its life cycle. The AI is there to assist you on your day to day, but not there to be intending to replace you by any means. So that is, I think, the huge misconception is my job is saved, my job is fully automated. That's not the case. No, in a perfect world, maybe, but it treats you. Let's treat it more as an assistant rather than a replacement. All right, another question here. Well, what trends are you seeing right now that are shaping what customers expect from CLM? So, I mean, truth be told, I think, well, of course, we're always looking to enhance our AI to make sure that it's taking into context what your standards are in your negotiations. I think that's a huge trend. People want, people are, I think, taking the route of AI being an assistant rather than a replacement, but they want to go one next step further with that and essentially build a more agentic approach to their AI that takes into account their history, their negotiation style. And that is something that we're actually working on via a tool called Playbooks, where you essentially feed the AI your playbook, your standards, your context, etc. And that's going to change how it's making suggestions either through text or through a red line. Another question is what's coming down the pipe for Cobblestone that differentiates you all? So I do think that the biggest differentiator that we have beyond our clients is going to be that configurability that I mentioned a number of times on today's call. Just considering we provide you with the keys to make those changes as necessary. That gives you a ton of flexibility in terms of your system. It can really be tailor-made to your organization. There are options to very easily, if you just call something, if you call a fully executed agreement signed, and the next company calls it complete, next company calls it active. We can make sure that the status terminology that the system is giving you is based on your terminology. So making a very personalized experience is something that differentiates us the most. Another question here, how do you price? So we do offer a number of different license models, but I would say that the most common factor that applies to pricing is going to be user count. How many users you expect to access the system. Now, that being said, we offer a tool called the Enterprise Edition that does offer unlimited read-only user access for no additional charge. So that is an option for those of you on the call who might vision a company-wide access to the system like this, but doesn't really want to pay too much for full enterprise access. Any other questions?
I think that is it for now. Thank you all for joining. Thank you so much, Mike, for the demonstration. Thank you, Cobblestone, for sponsoring this webinar today. Please look out for some additional information coming from us and from Cobblestone post webinar. And we look forward to seeing you guys again on future demos. And thanks again, Cobblestone. And we'll hope you guys have a great rest of the day.